Hello Internet, and welcome to a new tutorial. You know what's the common thing between this patch, and this patch? These are iconic sounds that shaped Psytrance music, but let's face it, by now they are boring and overused. In this tutorial, I'll show you how to flip them around, spice them up, and make them interesting again, just like I did with the presets of my Psyche Vol2 Serum Bank. The first sound of this tutorial is one of the most iconic and basic. You might know it under the name the squelch. To make it, it's super easy. You need a saw wave or a square wave. I'll go with the saw wave. I'll use one of these analog wave shapes in here. Let's take the basic mini. This will give the sound a little bit of a dirtier character, if that makes sense. Now, what we will do, let's take the second envelope, modulate the chorus pitch of the oscillator. Let's go to the matrix, set the modulation only unipolar like so. Let's take the envelope, no sustain, decay really quick, something like that. Now, let's feed everything into a bandpass filter, just like so, 24 decibels per octave filter, close it, give it some drive, give it some resonance. Let's go to the FXs, add a distortion, keep it on tube, set the drive to maybe 50%, something like so. And now with a random arpeggiator, we'll get this. Check this out. Very basic squelch. Now let's spice things up. The first thing I'm going to do is add some movement to the pitch modulation. For that, let's go to the matrix. Let's set the amount of envelope 2 to chorus pitch to 50%. This will give us a wider range of timbres that we will get from the modulation. And in the auxiliary source, let's set note on random 1. And we will use the note on random 1 2 to modulate the decay of the pitch envelope. But we'll set the amount to something moderate, maybe 29%, something like that. Things are getting really interesting, but that's not enough. You know what I'll do now? I'm going to add a second oscillator in here. I'm going to use the same saw wave, the analog basic mini, and I'm going to FM oscillator A from oscillator B, because from my experience, FM and squelches works perfectly together. So for that, let's take oscillator B one octave lower, its level down, and modulate or FM oscillator A from oscillator B, give it some modulation just like so, and I'm going to modulate the pitch of oscillator B with the same envelope as oscillator A, and exactly the same thing. Let's go to the matrix in here, set the modulation to unipolar, amount 50% like so, and auxiliary source note on random, and now we will have this. Check this out. Things are getting really interesting, but we're still not there. We need a bit more spice on this patch. For that, let's go to the FXs in here. Let's add a compressor just to control the dynamics a little bit. I'll set it to limiting mode, attack 0, release really fast. We're going to catch some of these peaks. Check this out. Perfect. Now I'll add a delay like so. I'm going to set the BPM in here to 132 for both channels. Mode tap delay, give it some mix, give it a lot of feedback, and now we have this. Check this out. Now things are getting really interesting, but the feedback is way too high. Let's take it down a little bit. I'm going to use the filter of the delay to add some movement to the sound. How? Check this out. I'm going to close it like this, and I'm going to use an LFO to modulate the frequency of this filter. I'll set it in the matrix to something moderate like this, and the rate maybe to 1 bar, something like this. And now we have this. Check this out. And to give the sound a bit more movement, I'll modulate the feedback in here with the second note on random, but not all the way up, just a tiny bit like this. So some notes will have more delay on them. And now we have this. Check this out. Perfect. And now with the kick and bass. If you enjoy my content and want to support my work, you can leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to dive deeper into Psytrance sequencing and sound design, check out my preset packs and masterclasses, links down in the description. The second sound of this tutorial is what I like to call the agile lead. Now, why I call it the agile lead, I don't know, it just became a habit and now I call it so. It's super easy to make. We will take a saw oscillator, take it 2 octaves lower like this, take the filter in here, set it to bandpass, 24 decibels per octave filter, close it a little bit, give it a lot of drive, a lot of resonance like so, and we will modulate it with the chaos oscillator just like so. For the chaos oscillator, we will set it to BPM sync, sample and hold, and the rate of 1/8. Super iconic. Now let's spice it up. Let's go to the effects in here. Let's add some distortion. I want it to be crunchy, and for that, I'll add a down sample distortion like so. And let's modulate the drive with the chaos oscillator. Let's go to the matrix and set the modulation to something moderate like so. Perfect, we got ourselves a super crunchy sound, but I'm going to tame it down a little bit. For that, I'm going to use the internal filter of the distortion unit. I'll set it to post, bandpass. I'll give it some resonance, just like so, not too much. And I'm going to set the frequency in here all the way up. Now, I'm going to modulate this frequency with the chaos oscillator, but what I'll do, I'm going to close the filter using the chaos oscillator. So basically, it's the opposite modulation as our main filter. And now we'll get this, check this out. We got a really interesting sound, but it has a lot of presence in the higher frequencies. I'm going to tame that using the EQ in here. I'm going to set it to low pass like so. Take down its Q a little bit, close it. Now we have this. See, we're taking down a lot of the frequencies, but that's not a problem because I'm going to use the first LFO in here to give movement to the sound by modulating the low pass that I've just created with the EQ. Just like so, I'll set the LFO to a rate of 1 and 2. Now we have this. Check this out. Perfect, we got a really nice movement. Now, the sound is way too crunchy, and I want to make it sound a bit more plasticky, and there's no better way to do that than by using the compressor and setting it to multiband or OTT, basically. Check this out, now we have this. We just have way too much higher frequencies. I'll tame them down like so, and the LFO modulation on the low pass, I'm going to adjust it even further, just like this. Speaking of Agile, the third sound we're creating in this tutorial is known to be created by him using a Virus TI synthesizer. To create it inside of Serum, it's really simple. We need a wavetable from the Virus called FiboGlide. You can find these wavetables easily online. But if you want to get all the presets I make in these tutorials alongside other exclusive content, you can consider becoming a Patreon. Now, let's get back to the tutorial. The FiboGlide wavetable in here, let's set it a couple of octaves lower like so. Wavetable position somewhere around in here. The oscillator warp, let's set it to sync window full like so. Let's set it somewhere around in here. Check this out. We get that famous sound. Now let's go to the global section in here. Chaos 1 and Chaos 2, let's set them to BPM sync, sample and hold. Let's set the rate to 1/8 on both chaos oscillators, just like so. Let's go to the oscillator in here, modulate the wavetable position with the first chaos oscillator and the oscillator warp using the second chaos oscillator, just like so. Let's set the wavetable position somewhere around in here, and the matrix, the modulation, something moderate like so. Now we have this, check this out. Actually, let's set the rate to 1/16 for both chaos oscillators. Now we have this. That famous virus lead we know from Agile. Now let's go back to the oscillators in here and tame those higher frequencies with a low pass filter. But what I'll do, I'm going to use in the MISC section in here, the German low pass. I'm going to give it some drive, open it like so. Now we have this. Maybe less drive. Perfect. Now if I'll add 1/8 dotted delay, check what we'll get. That famous glassy sound, but we need to spice it up. For that, in the effects is I'm going to add the filter in here. I'm going to set it to comb, close its cutoff, give it some resonance, and now we have this. Check this out. Perfect, but I want to give it some movement. For that, I'll close the cutoff, take the first LFO in here, make it modulate the cutoff of the comp filter, something like so. Rate, maybe, yeah, a couple of bars, and now we have this. Check this out. Okay, slow rate on the LFO and higher modulation value, something like this. Now I have this. Perfect. Now let's add a compressor in here, set it to multi-band, you know, famous OTT, just for that plasticky feeling. Now we have this. Perfect. And with the kick and bass, we'll get this. Check this out. Of course, to spice things up, we can close the resonance of the comp filter and modulate it using one of the chaos oscillators, just like so. And the matrix will set the modulation not all the way up, let's say 30%. Now I have this. And that's it. I hope you've liked this tutorial and learned something new. If you did, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And check out my preset packs and masterclasses. Links down in the description. And I'll see you in the next one.